Hello, everyone. I'm Deirdre Bolton. Thank you for streaming with us. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan saying Russia now has all the forces it needs to conduct a major military action in Ukraine. He also negated reports that Russia would wait until the conclusion of the Olympics to invade.
We are in the window when an invasion could begin at any time, should Vladimir Putin decide to order it. I will not comment on the details of our intelligence information, but I do want to be clear. It could begin during the Olympics, despite a lot of speculation that it would only happen after the Olympics. As we've said before, we are ready either way.
Hello, my friends. I'm Nathan Leal. The website is watchmanscry.com. And I decided to do this video just a few hours ago because of what I'm hearing on the news. And if you haven't heard about it, you're going to be hearing about it soon. Now, I want to start off by saying, I don't know if the war is going to happen, but something's going on, folks. And I want to bring this to your attention because if it plays out like it's looking like it could play out, things are going to change real fast throughout the world. What I'm talking about is war with Russia. Now, on Friday afternoon around the evening hours when the news started to share all their broadcasts, it was like all of the news channels all at once, whether they were online or on TV, all around the world began sharing the same warning. And the warning had to do with an impending attack that was going to come from Russia into Ukraine. And the news is saying, coming from the zombie administration of Joe Biden, the administration is saying that you need to get out of Ukraine right now. If you're a citizen, you're not going to get rescued by our troops because when the war starts, when the bullets start flying, they're not going to be able to rescue anybody. So they're telling everybody to leave. Now, the UK is doing the same thing, and so is Norway. They are making an emergency announcement to all their citizens to immediately leave Ukraine because they said in the next 24 to 48 hours, Russia's going to invade.
Is it starting to feel scarier, more imminent? What are people telling you?
The tone has become very grim on the part of the government, and you can sense in people, especially the expat community, they are now getting the word in government after government after government, not just the United States, the UK and Norway and many other countries are now telling citizens to leave.
Now, how did they come to that conclusion? How did they come to that determination? The State Department also released a press conference where they talked about it, and they said that they have the intel, whatever that is, whether it's based on satellite images or intercepted communications or hacking into servers, computers, etc. But they said they have intercepted the intel, the chatter, that it's going to happen. Of course, they're leaving a little disclaimer saying, however, it might not. But if it does, then we're warning you now. So that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are watching this right now, all you got to do is go to Google or whatever search engine you use and type in Russian invasion or Ukraine war and look what comes up. These stories are just minutes old. You will see stories that have just been published 30 minutes ago or an hour ago, and you will see the news outlets are all saying the same thing. The big three in the United States, as well as the cable ones, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and then it goes over into Europe. British news outlets are talking about it. And then when you go to India, we have it as well. This thing is happening right now, folks. So I just wanted to give an update and a heads up that we're watching an operation right now. I want to say in fairness that this could be a similar old-fashioned waving of swords between two superpowers, Russia and the United States. It could be that. However, the terms that both sides want and what both sides want are entirely different. Russia does not want to see an expansion of NATO into Ukraine. They will be a member of NATO, and if one gets attacked, according to Article 5 of the NATO treaty, then that means all of them are getting attacked and they have to come to the aid of the other member. So if Ukraine enters NATO, and then if Ukraine tries to take back the island of Crimea, which Russia took a few years ago, and if Ukraine tries to get it back, then Ukraine will have the help of all the NATO countries to help them get it back. And Putin even said that. But then he also admits that he knows he's outnumbered, he's outmatched against NATO. But then he says this.
Я хочу еще раз все-таки подчеркнуть это. Я говорил, но мне очень бы хотелось, чтобы вы меня услышали все-таки в конце концов. И донесли это до своих читателей, зрителей и пользователей в интернете. Но вы понимаете или нет, что если Украина будет в НАТО и военным путем будет возвращать себе Крым, европейские страны автоматически будут втянуты в военный конфликт с Россией. Конечно, потенциал объединенной организации НАТО и России несопоставим. Мы понимаем. Но мы также и понимаем, что Россия одна из ведущих ядерных держав. По некоторым компонентам, по современности даже многих опережает. Победителей не будет. И вы окажетесь втянутыми в этот конфликт помимо своей воли. И вы даже не успеете глазом моргнуть, когда будете исполнять пункт 5 Римского договора. Господин президент, конечно, не хочет этого развития. И я не хочу. И я не хочу. Поэтому он здесь и находится, и мучает меня уже 6 часов подряд.
Hear it, folks? He's telling us that he's a superpower of nuclear arms. He's telling us that Russia has nuclear capabilities, and they'll use it. But will they use it is the big question, and why does the United States think that they're going to do it this weekend? Well, there was a rumor that Putin is going to invade Ukraine at the end of the Olympics to give them time to finish. But now there's some intel saying he's going to do it during the Olympics. And there's all of the talking heads and the retired generals and the war experts discussing on how it can happen and what he needs to do and not do. He has to do it when the ground's still frozen. If it's muddy, it's going to be hard. What about the supply line, et cetera, et cetera? And ladies and gentlemen, at this point, it's just a bunch of talk because we don't know what he's going to do. But if this thing does happen, now it can play out a certain number of ways, but if this thing does happen, Russia is not going to play like we're expecting because they know they're outmatched. They know that the armies of NATO are bigger than his, although he is able to amass almost 1 million soldiers, but NATO has more than that. So Putin has stated, and they have made it public, that their methods, if it comes to it, are going to be asymmetrical, which means not normal mano a mano, hand-to-hand, strength for strength. He's going to use asymmetric methods, which means that they're going to do some surprise things. And they've been practicing the surprise things for a number of years. For example, cyber warfare, being able to hack into power grids of any nation that they want, being able to turn off the cable networks anywhere they want, being able to turn off the internet anywhere they want. Russia has submarines. They could turn off the internet for the whole United States. They could disrupt Wall Street. There's a lot of things they could do that are asymmetric without having to fire a bullet that would bring America to its knees and the West. They could also turn off power, interfere with the grid. They can do an EMP. There's a number of things they could do. And then, of course, they do have the nukes. And then on top of that, they have some very, very scary and capable abilities. Check this out, folks. This is the container ship missile system that they have from Kret. And they're able to smuggle missiles, weaponry, drones, small aircraft from containers. And those containers could be parked on ships offshore, or they could be unloaded sitting on a dock somewhere, or they can be on the back of a semi and delivered anywhere to the United States. And they've been letting us know they can do this, and they have this capability. They have made videos to tell us about it, so let me show you one of them. Take a look at this. How do you defend against that? How are the Patriot missile batteries supposed to know that that thing is on I-25 outside of Denver or along the interstate next to NORAD, Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, or anywhere else? Putin has this capability. And then on top of that, he also has hypersonic missiles, which he has been reminding us that he has. And recently, he released a video showing just that. Look at this, folks. Now, there it is, taking off, and you can't even see it. These hypersonic missiles can travel between 6 to 10 times the speed of sound, Mach 10. And now they're saying that there's even an upgrade recently that allows them to go between 10 and 20 times the speed of sound. Now, the speed of sound is 700 and something miles an hour. So times 10 is 7,000 miles an hour. That's Mach 10. So Mach 20 would be 14,000 miles an hour, and we do not have rockets right now that can match that. We don't have the ability to stop missiles that can do that. Russia does. So does China. And also Iran is getting a hold of them.
Russia has introduced a new missile system that could be impossible to defend against. The first regiment of avant-garde hypersonic missiles are now in service, and according to President Vladimir Putin, they can travel more than 20 times the speed of sound. Dominic Velitis is covering this story for us in London. Dominic, what more can you tell us about these new weapons?
Well, Jennifer, they were first unveiled back in 2018 by Russia's President Vladimir Putin. Indeed, he used his annual State of the Nation address that year to make the announcement. They are very fast. We're told, as you say, they can travel at 20 times the speed of sound. They can be mounted on top of an ICBM and can carry nuclear weapons of up to 2 megatons. But that's just part of the story, Jennifer. As well as being able to travel at incredible speeds, the avant-garde so-called glide system means it's also highly maneuverable. It can make sharp turns and take unpredictable courses on the way to its target, making it more difficult to intercept. And this is perhaps its big selling point and the quality that makes it really quite worrying. In effect, it is a new kind of intercontinental missile system that at the very least is difficult to defend against. Indeed, when it was unveiled last year, Putin boasted that the avant-garde was invulnerable to not only existing missile defense systems, but potentially future ones as well.
Russia is not just some tiny little kid brother on the other side of Ukraine that you don't have to worry about. They're not the carny third world opponent that Americans think they are. A few days ago, Bloomberg, accidentally they say, they accidentally did it, they put out a news report on their website and it stated for 30 minutes that Russia had just invaded Ukraine. This was a few days ago. And then they removed it, but the question is why? It makes you wonder, folks. Now, if we look back at other news events that have taken place that were inside jobs, that were false flags, that were rigged, that were controlled, that were engineered by the New World Order, for example, 9/11, during 9/11, all of the news channels were saying the same thing. In fact, some of them got ahead of themselves. Remember that notorious, famous video where the lady from the British News, BBC, was telling the world that Building 7 had fallen when it hadn't fallen yet. It was still behind her. And we've all seen that clip. And then it fell later.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. There's almost a sense downtown in New York behind me, down by the World Trade Centers, of just an area completely closed off as the rescue workers try to do their job. But this isn't the first building that has suffered as a result. We know that part of the Marriott Hotel next to the World Trade Center also collapsed as a result of this huge amount of falling debris from 110 floors of the two twin towers of the World Trade Center. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline, a symbol of the financial prosperity of this city.
So the news reports are told what to say because the news is owned by the biggest corporations, by BlackRock and Blackstone and all of the other minions out there who tell them what to say. So this is a controlled effort to brainwash citizens of the world with propaganda and to get people on board with the coming war. Now, the narrative on the West is not the same narrative that Russia is telling its people. Russia is saying they don't want war. They're using common sense. And folks, if we were to put themselves in their shoes, it is similar. And Putin even said this. He said, if I parked missile batteries on the other side of the border of Texas in Mexico or on the other side of California, how would Americans feel about that? Right on the border. We would not like that. That's what the Cuban Missile Crisis was all about. They were going to put missiles that close to us. Or even if they had them in Venezuela or somewhere else down in South America, we wouldn't like it. So that's where he's coming from. That's why he's saying he does not want Ukraine to enter NATO, because Ukraine's a buffer between the NATO nations, Europe, the Eurozone, and Russia. It's a buffer just like North Korea is a buffer between the West and China. So that's why Putin wants it there. Now, this thing is very complex, and it's not as simple as saying, well, we just need to go along with it and go fight another war. Folks, how many Christian conservatives voted for Trump under the mandate and the promise that he was going to stop all the needless wars that were happening all around the world? How many? So if there's any rah-rah bubbas out there who would say, yeah, we need to turn Russia into a parking lot. Let's go kick butt. Let's kick Putin's butt and we'll show them who's boss. That is a fool's statement because it's not going to end well. And Putin even said that. Look at this right here. Look what he says. It will not end. There will be no winners. Putin does not want this war. So if they are telling us that a war is coming, this is what I'm concerned about. How difficult would it be for a false flag event to happen and blame it on Russia? How difficult would it be for a missile to come across the border into Ukraine and blow up a few things and say it came from Russia? It was one of their new missiles. It wouldn't be difficult at all because how do you prove it? How do you disprove it? And I am very suspicious that the United States government, along with NATO countries, have a plan to do just that. This is not a thus saith the Lord. This is just me thinking out loud because we know their MO. We know what the New World Order wants. And up to this point, the main thing on the news has been the Great Reset. The forced sauce, the convoy north of us in Ottawa. That's what's on the news, and then that thing is spreading. People are revolting. They want to fight the mandates that are out there, the forcible mandates. And that has been the number one story for weeks now. But now, on top of that, we have this. And ladies and gentlemen, the reason that all this is happening at the same time is because we're in the middle of chaos. We are in the tribulation period. The first horseman has been released, and that's what the toxon is. But the next phase is going to happen. That red horse is coming. And that red horse is eventually going to grab a hold of world leaders and make them fight each other. Because that's what time it is. And if that happens, folks, when that time comes, everything's going to change. And if we thought that it's been hard now, it's going to become a nightmare. It's going to affect everything. World War III will start because it's going to spread to the other nations that also want to solve the border differences and skirmishes like Pakistan and India. We have China invading Taiwan. We have the Koreas fighting one another as well as other nations. Now, if this thing does take place with Russia and we're drawn into this fight, the reason that it's going to happen is because the United States wants it. That means they want to see this thing play out to its desired end, which means they need to make Putin say uncle. And the thing that they want him to really do is the Great Reset. Putin does not want to participate in the Great Reset. They don't want any part of that because the Great Reset on the other side is going to be controlled by the IMF, the World Bank, central banks of every nation, which are tied to the IMF, which are tied to the Federal Reserve, which are tied to the private owners, the billionaire club. All those billionaires, the Rothschilds, you know who they are, folks. We've been talking about these guys forever, for the longest time, and this is their thing. This is them raising the beast, taking over the world and turning the world into a dictatorship, a tyrannical medical dictatorship. But first they need to have chaos, and then they're going to have the phoenix that rises out of chaos. So how is this going to play out? If this thing starts happening this fast, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you are ready for this? How many of you are ready to wake up on Monday morning and hear that World War III started? I'm not. I don't want to see it happen because the draft's going to come. And then one of the other things that's going to happen is that, there's so many. I've been examining the ramifications of this. There are so many negative consequences of this thing. For example, China has already made a treaty with Russia. So China's going to get drawn in. And then sanctions are going to start from both sides to one another. The United States will freeze assets for Russia and also threaten to do that same thing with China. But China, they're holding on to American treasuries. They can dump those. And China also creates everything for the whole world. China stocks the shelves in Walmart and in Target and in your favorite store, your department store. China gives us the clothes that we wear. China stocks the shopping malls, the brick and mortar malls all throughout the world. In the United States, in Europe, China manufactures those things. And if a war starts, plan for there to be empty shelves everywhere. We will not be able to get anything, folks. If we think that a supply side crisis is happening now, it will capsize the economies of the whole world. Folks, think about it. The things that you buy that are in your house, the things in your bathroom, the things in your closet, the things in your car, that switch that you turn on, when the radio turns on, when you use the radio, when you use your computer, your laptop, your phone, that all comes from China, and that's all going to stop. It will not come here anymore. We won't be able to get parts. Well, first of all, we don't even fix things anymore. This is a throwaway consumer society, so forget that. But we're not going to be able to get a lot of things that we're taking for granted now. So that will be on the table, as well as rationing. Food's going to become a problem as well, because if we have a world war, there's going to be rationing. There's going to be rationing of food and supplies so that the supplies can go to the soldiers and to the war efforts that's taking place in several theaters, by the way, because it's going to start in Ukraine and then it's going to spread through the rest of Europe. And then we may see China invade Taiwan, which is going to draw in Asian countries. Japan has said they will defend Taiwan. So we have that going on. And then we're going to have a Pacific theater where the United States will also go over there and get involved. So it'll be like World War II, where we will have several fronts of war taking place. And what is that going to do to the resources? So we'll have several war fronts taking place. So the supplies will have to go for that. We will see inflation because there will be rationing taking place. We will not be able to see things in stores because the United States no longer manufactures its own widgets. So we will have a giant hole there. And then on top of that, the nations of the world are going to need trillions and trillions of dollars to pay for this war effort. Where's that money going to come from, folks? The United States is going to go deeper into debt, and we're going to see a tailspin of the monetary system as well. So a war would solve the next phase of the Great Resets. Now, I hope and I pray that it doesn't come to that. But ladies and gentlemen, at some point, that red horse is going to sting enough world leaders and convince them to go to war because it's Bible prophecy. So what do we do? This is a new development. It's in real time right now. It's fluid. The things to do are ask yourself this. If the things that you were planning to buy in the coming days were no longer available at the store, how painful will it be to your household? If the supplies that you were planning to get and you just been putting it off, you've been procrastinating, and then you can't have them, you don't get to use them, you don't get to buy them, how painful would it be to your prep efforts? Some of you have been putting off storing food, prepping equipment, the Mylar bags, buying bags of rice and beans to put in those bags and put into buckets. You've been putting it off, waiting for spring maybe. But if the war started and then you couldn't get those things, how difficult would it then be for you and your family? That's the question you need to ask yourself, folks. And it's not just for buckets of food. It has to do with toiletries, toilet paper. Some of you have just a week of toilet paper, but if this war starts and toilet paper is not going to exist for 6 months, it'll be 6 months before it exists again, or a year. How difficult would it be for you, my friend? Those are the questions you need to ask. Now, if some of you want to write me and say, what do I get? What do I do? I can't answer that question because each house has its own needs. Some of you need medication. Some of you have needs of, if you have a CPAP machine, do you have the equipment to keep that thing going, to repair and the refills and all that? What about if you have babies? What about diapers? Dried milk? There's a lot of things on the list that we could all have a brainstorm about and try to figure out. And that's why I'm sharing this, ladies and gentlemen, because I just want to give you a heads up to work on that right now. Because if this thing is true, Biden said, and the Secretary of State said, that they expect the invasion to occur between now and the end of the Olympics, which is the 20th of February. So that just gives us a week and some change, envelope of time, if it's true. And then they came out and said, actually, it could be this weekend. So get out of Ukraine now. You need to leave, or you won't be rescued because you'll be caught in the crossfire when bullets are flying. That's what Biden said. So he's using open rhetoric, and I don't know if Biden is saying more than he should be saying, but he's saying everything. He's saying war is coming, World War III is coming. They're going to shut down the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that Russia has been working on. It's actually finished. It goes through the Baltic Sea next to the Gazprom pipe, the Nord Stream 1 pipe that takes gas to Germany. And Putin's going to turn that thing off. But then Biden recently said that if war starts, he's going to turn it off. I don't understand that one because that's the heat for Germany. So I don't know how that works out. I don't know what conversation he had with the German chancellor to convince him that it's going to be okay. The United States will fill the gap. I don't know how the United States can do that. But anyway, they're negotiating and trying to solve that problem. So there are many things going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. But in conclusion, start praying. If you haven't been vigilant lately, then I want to challenge you to become more vigilant, both spiritually and in practicality. Because if this thing is on the schedule with what the beast wants to do, the New World Order, then it's going to happen no matter what. Whether we're ready or not, it's going to happen. So we got to get ready too. And I want to challenge you with that. So if some of you have not been right with God, if you have not been living right, if you've been slack or you've been tolerating things in your life that you know should not be there, if you are cold, you don't have that fire of God that you used to have, you feel a little cooled off, I want to challenge you, my friend. Take care of those things. Repent. Deal with those things, the things that are in your life that you've been tolerating. It's time, folks. Lay the axe to the root of the tree of those things and lay aside every weight that so easily besets. Those strongholds, folks, get rid of them. So get right with God. So that's what this message is, but I needed to share it with all of you. Please share this. And if some of you are struggling with what I'm saying, maybe you're doubting, you're saying, they've been talking about Ukraine. When they invaded Crimea, back then, when Russia invaded Crimea, that was years ago, and it didn't turn into World War III, Nathan. Come on. I don't believe it. I don't care. Ladies and gentlemen, they're projecting something right now. Because if you go to your search engine and type in Ukraine war or Russia invasion, look what comes up. And look at the timeline of the stories, the timestamp. Some of them just went up 10 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, an hour ago. It's like they've been told to tell this to everybody, to the whole world, to warn. So that the whole world will know that when the war starts, it will be Russia's fault. And then they will get on board and support the war effort. But ladies and gentlemen, if an invasion comes, first of all, if it happens that an invasion comes and shots are fired or a missile explodes the base from Russia, please, please, please don't jump to their conclusion immediately and just believe it. Because we already know that they're a bunch of liars. They're lying to us about the sauce. They're lying to us about the cause of the sauce and the different variations of it, the add-ons. We know they're lying there. We know that they have lied about the numbers of people injured. So what's to keep them from lying about this? Folks, we're watching the tribulation take place. You have a front row seat to the end of time. You have a front row seat to Bible prophecy right now. We're watching it in real time, folks. And if Jesus told us, don't be deceived, be careful, it's a great delusion, there will be a slumber in the land. If we don't love the truth, the delusion will infect us. If Jesus said that, and if we're warned in the Bible about that, then let us not take part in that delusion. All right, ladies and gentlemen? Now, I'm going to end this. I didn't want it to take too long, but I just want you to know about this. Heads up. And please, my friends, please, 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 after you see this video, don't just go to the next one, because that's the habit of many of you. What doom news is there? What red pill news is there? What YouTube can I see about this or that? And you see them, and then you go to the next one. After you see this one, ladies and gentlemen, turn it off and grab a notepad and a pen and have a meeting with your loved ones. If you have parents or children or a spouse, family members, best friends, have a meeting. If you have a spiritual group, a remnant group you're a part of, have a meeting and talk about this. Quickly. Do it now. Do it today. Have a meeting and talk about where are the holes in our supply plans? Where are the holes in our rations and our food? Because if this thing gets started, everything's going to change overnight. From one day being normal, the next day will be madness. And Russia's going to attack us. If they respond, they're going to do it asymmetrically. That means non-conventional. That means guerrilla warfare. And now with the high-tech world that we live in, they're able to do that. And if perchance they're able to turn off the ATMs in America or in Europe, certain nations, if they could turn off the ATMs, do you have enough cash? Is there fuel in your car? Do you have enough candles if the lights are out? Do you have the measures to warm the house that are unconventional? Are you ready? We have to get ready now. So have that meeting and stay tuned for more information. Now, I am working right now on another disclosure, and I had stated that I was going to put it out a few days ago, but while I was working on it, I came across some groundbreaking new information that was related to my disclosure that makes it even more mind-blowing. And when I share this information, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to blow your mind, because it's blowing my mind. It is so unbelievable what I have found. And it has to do with the sauce. It has to do with what their plan is. It has to do with what they believe the future is going to bring. It has to do with internment camps. It has to do with tyranny. It has to do with destroying freedom. And a decapitation of liberty is coming. I'll just say that. So be looking for it. And ladies and gentlemen, I am here to give you this information because this is what my calling is. This is what my calling is. I ask God to show me things, and He does. So ladies and gentlemen, please remember us in your support. We need your support, and we appreciate those who have remembered us, but keep remembering us, ladies and gentlemen. Our address is Watchmanscry, P.O. Box 157, Priest River, Idaho, 83856. I have the link below. I'm also putting this up on Rumble and Odyssey. And if you see the description in YouTube, I'm also going to put the link to Rumble and to Odyssey. Please also click the links on Rumble and Odyssey in case YouTube takes me down. Then you'll still be able to find me. And in order to make that easier, you will have to register for Rumble or Odyssey so that you can subscribe. So, or else just bookmark it. But either way, please remember us, ladies and gentlemen, for your support, and we thank you for that. All right, folks? Well, with that, I'm going to go. May the Lord God bless you and your family and protect you, and may He have mercy on all of us, including our Russian brethren on the other side of the border, because they don't want this either. But ladies and gentlemen, the evils of this world are driving us to madness and to bloodshed, and it's going to be a sad day as it arrives. I pray that it doesn't. I pray that this video will become a null and void, non-event. I pray that it will, but I still have to let you know what they're talking about right now. So with that, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.